Hello everyone, welcome to Keen here. So it's time yet again for another collection update video, but this time around it's not going to be a 30-minute long marathon like the last one turned out to be. Although I haven't said that, the one similarity that this video will have to the last collection update videos, I'm going to start off first and foremost with a book. And the book in question for this video is by James Griffiths. It's called Decades, Queen in the 1970s. And as soon as James announced this book, who appears little photograph of him there in the back. As soon as he announced this book, one of his videos, I kind of knew I was going to pick this up sooner or later. I've had it a little while now. I haven't got around to reading it, unfortunately. I'm reading the book currently. What I do is when I finish that, this will be the next little book that I'm going to be going through. And yeah, one of the differences between picking this up and picking up the Squeeze book is that Squeeze group, when I was reading that book, it was very much going into uncharted territory. They're not really a group that I've really followed. I've got nothing against them or anything like that. They're just not a group that I've really been a big fan of. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to pick her up, quite honestly, because it was just something different, something new kind of thing. Queen, on the other hand, I do know a little bit more about Queen, to say the least, than I do about Squeeze. I'm a much bigger fan of Queen. I've got all their albums. I've been a fan of them since I was a wee lad. In fact, one of the first albums I ever bought was a Queen album. So yeah, this is a different sort of ball game, quite honestly. But like I said, I haven't read this, but flicking through it, some very nice photographs inside, full colour photographs, and little snippets here and there that I have read uh, indicate to me that this is going to be something I'm going to really, really enjoy. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to kind of finally getting around to giving this a read. And it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun to read this. So yeah, thanks James for writing. I would also like to thank James for picking up a copy of my book. I don't know, I can't remember if I've thanked him in a video yet, but yeah, thanks for buying a copy of my book. It was kind of means a lot to me, to say the least. So we'll move on to the only record I'm going to be showing in this video, only vinyl record, and it's George Harrison's Sometime in England. And yeah, this is the final solo Beatles album, which I kind of really wanted to get my hands on before I finally got around to making that solo Beatles ranking video. I've been going on about for about 750 years at this point. So yeah, the barrier's open now effectively for me to kind of finally make that video. I'm not too sure why I left this one to the last. Of course, one album that I picked up has to be at the beginning, and the other one has to be, another one has to be at the end. For some reason or other, this was the one that was the final one to be added to my collection. I picked this up on eBay. It's a UK original copy, and it comes with the inner sleeve and everything. Fairly nice shape, really nice copy. Got George there with all the acupuncture needles in his face. Reminds me a little bit of anyone ever seen the film Hellraiser? Kind of reminds me a little bit of that. But yeah, finally got my hands on it. It's a somewhat tricky album to find. It's not super rare or anything like that. But I believe when this came out, it sold pretty well. And then interest in it, I think, peaked and it sort of dropped out of the charts and everything. And it sort of went a bit obscure and that sort of thing. One thing I have noticed though, looking on eBay, kind of extensively really for copies of this, it's in the UK anyway. It's particularly tricky to find on CD. For whatever reason, they've messed up the CD release of this, and it's tricky to find. This might actually be the only or one of the very few albums anyway that I'm aware of by a major recording artist where it's easier to find this album on vinyl than it is on CD. It's kind of a bit of a weird one really in that regard. CD copies in the UK anyway, like I said, very tricky to find. One thing I will say about this album is that I really, really do like it. I'm surprised. I didn't hear a lot of good things, not necessarily people bad mouthing or anything like that, saying it's awful, but I just didn't really have high expectations for it whatsoever. Give her a playthrough, and I think it's really, really good. I think it's a top-notch George Harrison album. I think it may actually be one of his better albums that he just did generally. So yeah, I'm very, very happy to kind of go out on the, it probably won't be the final solo Beatles album I'll buy. There'll be other ones somewhere along the line. Not many. I've got kind of almost all of them at this point. But it's nice to kind of go out at this point anyway. On a bit of a high and on a good album. So yeah, I really do quite like this. But I do believe George was kind of, he was kind of falling out a little bit with the record label at the time. The record industry, and that sort of thing. These sorts of, I believe there's an alternate cover to this. There's certain versions of it you can get these days where on CD I've noticed and that kind of thing where it's got like a different cover and it's got like a George's head with the UK at the background, England in the back, like a map of it. And I honestly prefer this. And also as well, I believe the track listings kind of got messed around with a little bit. The record label kind of interfered a little bit. But one thing I will say is if they did interfere, they interfered in a positive way because I think the track listing on this is fantastic. I think there's some good, really, really good stuff. Genuinely surprised how good this album is. So we'll move on to another George Harrison related thing, and this is the Traveling Wilburys. This is a box set from 2007. I think this is a Rhino release, and it's 3 discs in total. It's both albums with bonus tracks and the DVD. It's not missing a CD. The CD is just in my CD player. I've left her in there because I am currently listening to Volume 3, which is an album that I had very low expectations. Well, not low expectations. I didn't hear anything particularly all that good. Whenever the Wilburys were ever brought up, it's always like, oh, the first album's fantastic, but the second one's a bit of a letdown and that kind of thing. I actually think the second album, Volume 3, is fantastic. I was surprised. I think it's one of the more underrated albums by sort of like a major, in this case, major artist. It's really good. And I'm thinking of making an underrated, a video about underrated albums by big artists and that kind of thing. And I think Volume 3, if I finally get around to making it, will be a submission in that video because I really really do like. The only negative thing you can say as far as I'm concerned about Volume 3 is it's got no Roy Orbison in it because he unfortunately passed on before it could be made. But besides that, I think it's kind of faultless. Really, I think it's almost like a perfect album. I really do. At this point in time, I think I'm kind of completely bowled over by kind of head over heels for it. I think it's fantastic. I really like the first one as well, but I think because the Volume 3 was kind of so much, it's kind of an underrated album. It's kind of like discovering it and being just impressed by it throughout. Really, just think it's great. So yeah, I think it's definitely an album that people need to reassess and give another chance to because it's maybe a bit under the radar these days. But yeah, I was thinking as well of including this in the ranking video, the solo Beatles, but I think that's maybe pushing things a little bit. Quite honestly, yeah, George Harrison has a big part to play in the Traveling Wilburys. Of course, I think he's the mastermind really behind its creation. But to call it a George Harrison solo album, it's maybe pushing things a little bit. Let me know in the comments if I should or shouldn't include the Traveling Wilburys albums in a solo Beatles ranking video. I'm kind of leaning towards not doing it, but I'm open for suggestions. But anyway, the final thing I'm going to be showing is this. This is Brian Eno's Before and After Science, 1977 album. And this is something that I've wanted to kind of get my hands on for a good long while now. I've seen a few copies on vinyl and record shops, and I just never really picked her up. It's got the lithographs that came with the original press of this album, and yeah, I really do like this album. It's very very good indeed, to say the least. It's kind of a combination of Taking Tiger Mountain by Strategy and Another Green World. It's kind of like those albums kind of mushed together to a certain extent with a bit of Heroes as well. Not necessarily the song Heroes, but the album, the David Bowie album. David Bowie does have an acknowledgement actually in the liner notes in this. So yeah, Eno and Bowie were kind of working together, of course, at this time in 1977. And I guess this is a product of the of that era, of their creative powers, and it's very good. It really is fantastic. So yeah, I believe as well Eno has announced a tour, his first ever tour. I was kind of surprised by this. I thought that surely he's toured at one point in the last come on to 50 years at this point, as a solo artist. But now apparently he hasn't. He's going to be touring later on this year in London and a few other places. Well, I think he's doing Venice and all that kind of thing. So yeah, kind of. I would love to go and see him, quite honestly, but I think I'm going to be traveling. I think he's doing a tour around there in London anyway. And I believe the day before Halloween, or the 30th of October. And yeah, I don't think I'll be able to make it, quite honestly. I'd love to see him though, I really would. I think I'm probably miss out, unfortunately. But anyway, I think that'll do for this video. Prattled on long enough. So yeah, like I've said, I will be fine. I'm kind of all set really to make the solo Beatles ranking video at this point in time. Hopefully it'll live up to some sort of expectations that at least I have for it. It's gonna be in terms of thinking about what sort of order I'm going to be putting these albums in. It's going to be kind of a busy couple of it'll probably be a couple of weeks, quite honestly, to get my head around what I'm going to do with all these albums, what sort of order I'm going to put them in. But that's something for me to work out, quite honestly, behind the scenes. So yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. And yeah, I'll get round to making that ranking video, and I'll get round to making that underrated video when I ever get round to doing that, and all the other things that I would like to make, but probably will not have the time or the or the opportunity. So anyway, thanks for watching. Bye bye, everyone.